Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tradition, Technology, and Creativity, a discussion that is part of the cultural heritage of the Nusantara Creative Process Talk Series, co-organized by Meet the Makers Indonesia and Babaran Segara Gunung Culture House. I'm Tony from an art gallery in Singapore, and I'll be the MC for this session. And before we start with the rest of our session today, I would like to call upon Ms. Sandra Nissen, who is an anthropologist, a writer, and a cultural activist, who is a dear friend and supporter of Meet the Makers and Babaran Segara Gunung, to give some welcoming remarks. Sandra, please.
Thank you very much, Tony. It's nice to meet you here.
Yes.
It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you today to a very unique series of webinars. I'm welcoming you to the very first in the Cultural Heritage of Nusantara Creative Process series. And I think it promises to be very, very interesting. I remember as a child sitting in the living room with my father, and he invited me to try to imagine worlds that I had never thought of before and that I'd never read of. He tried to introduce me to the idea of the unknown. And that might be why I've become an anthropologist. I've been enchanted and captured and amazed my entire life by the wealth of creativity in Indonesia, an incredibly rich world cultural heritage. And the two co-organizers of the event, Meet the Makers and Rumah Budaya Babaran Segara Gunung, the culture center that Tony already introduced, I think are smitten by the same disease as I as an anthropologist, because they've decided to devote themselves to this very issue of the unknown that is found in craft. And this series is their brainchild. This is very unusual, and I want to impress upon you that you're joining something rather special and perhaps unique right now in Indonesia. We're living in a very strange world at the time. Handicraft is not doing well. It's anachronistic. The global market is gone crazy, and it's rendered handicraft economically non-viable. This is a time of mass production, of computer technologies, of economies of scale. And actually, it's quite absurd to be producing craft in this day and age because you can't get ahead financially. But it's even more absurd that a textile pattern, for instance, stolen by a fashion brand will get more money from the fashion brand will get more money from that pattern than the actual makers of the pattern. And that model on the runway set in glamour, pardon me, will accrue much more status than the village of women who invented the pattern. They're anonymous and forgotten. This is a world turned on its head. It's hard to say what's crazier, the world that makes craft anachronistic or the hardcore few who persist in dedicating themselves to craft, heart and soul, because they recognize in it something of eternal value. You find yourself in this webinar series with those dedicated, persistent few who are interested in the original and authentic craft. Not only that, but they're going a step further and they're wanting to share with you that great depth that they know in craft. I was really excited when UNESCO started its Intangible Cultural Heritage Program, but this is met with some confusion. They wanted to celebrate the craft of value, and many people have not known the difference between the material object that's the result of the intangible thought world and the intangible thought world that creates that craft. The object is just a symptom. It's just an expression of the deep thoughts, feelings, and insights, often sacred, which motivate craft makers. Today and throughout this series, you get the unique chance to enter into some of those thought worlds that are generating Indonesian crafts today. That's very special and it's unique. This is a series to be celebrated and to learn from. Congratulations to the co-organizers. Thank you to our wonderful speakers and conveners, and to all of you in attendance. I know you're going to have a very enjoyable series.
Thank you, Sandra, for the heartwarming remarks. We are glad to have you, family members, to join us here today. And on behalf of the co-organizers, I would like to thank everyone for joining us in this cultural heritage of the Nusantara Creative Process webinar series. And as mentioned, this is the first webinar in a series of 4 webinars organized by Meet the Makers Indonesia and Babaran Segoro Gunung Culture House. These 2 organizations have worked hand in hand for many years. Meet the Makers and Babaran Segoro Gunung share a commitment to education regarding the important craft as art traditions of the Nusantara region. We are very thankful for the support of our partner organizations, including Indonesian Heritage, APADA, Garland Magazine, the Center for Cultural Heritage Studies of Ciputra University, Visual Communication and Design of Ciputra University, Tracing Patterns Foundations, and the Research Collective for the Decolonization of Fashion. And as most know, Meet the Makers is a collective of artisans, artists, and artisan advocates organizing annual exhibitions to share various craft as art traditions in the capital city of Jakarta. Babaran Segoro Gunung is a non-profit educational organization working in the area of cultural education, particularly in regard to the heritage of creative process. And there will be 4 webinars in this series, presenting both artists and artisans who are working in the traditional craft mediums or artists who are using traditional craft creative processes to create contemporary art. We are working hard to adapt to the demands of the pandemic in trying to create virtual dialogues about issues we feel are of great importance. So please do enjoy the session. And we would like to express our gratitude to Grace Tan Johannes, an independent journalist who will be helping us with the translation in today's session. Now, I would like to take this time to introduce our moderator for this webinar, Michael Nathaniel Kurniawan. Michael is a design and entrepreneurship educator at Ciputra University, Surabaya, Indonesia. He is one of the alumni of Kaufman Foundation Global Visiting Faculty Program and is the founder of the Center for Center for Creative Heritage Studies and its University Museum. He's a senior lecturer for the Visual Communication Design Department, School of Creative Industries of Universitas Ciputra. He is also a research fellow for the Tracing Patterns Foundation and an awardee of the Indonesia Endowment Fund for Education to study a graduate program at the University College London Institute of Education. And now I shall hand over the floor or the screen to Michael, who will introduce us, our speakers, and the session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Michael. It is my great pleasure to take part as moderator in today's webinar. It's really interesting to hear what Dr. Sandra Nissen has just mentioned before, and we can relate a lot to what you have just said, Dr. Sandra. So we're going to have a very interesting topic for today on tradition, creativity, and technology in the context that Dr. Sandra has just mentioned. And it will be discussed by 3 very experienced speakers. Each speakers will have 20 minutes to share their talks. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce and invite our speakers for today. Our first speaker, Bapak Agus Ismoyo, or we call it Pak Ismoyo, is the artist. Okay, let me read, please allow me to read his bio. Bapak Agus Ismoyo is a batik artist in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. In 2018, he was given an award by the Sultan of Yogyakarta in recognition for his contribution to the culture of Yogyakarta. In his work, he digs into his root as a Javanese and works with the tradition of batik because of its integral role in Indonesian culture. In his artwork, he grows in rootedness, using the ancient system of batik on Java as a foundation for creating contemporary fine art batik. His studio, Brahma Tirtasari, was established in 1985 and is a division of the Babaran Segara Gunung Culture House, which explores and teaches the cultural heritage of the creative process. So, please welcome Bapak Agus Ismoyo. I believe it is very interesting to learn from his unique and holistic perspective on tradition, creative process, and technology that he has developed through the years of his experience in making batik. Pak Ismoyo, if you're ready,
I'm
the
ready.
session is yours.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us in this webinar. Many thanks for working to bring this series together, and to NTFP EP for providing our Zoom platform. Okay. Just a note that in my presentation, there will be several images of my artwork in between on the slide. First, I would like to introduce myself. I am a batik artist living in Yogyakarta. In my opinion, in this webinar series, the creative process of Nusantara, the topic has many aspects which are very broad. So I will speak only in the context of my own creative experiences and try to look at the creative process as I have observed and experienced it in my involved in my art, which is batik. Okay, beforehand, I would like to share that batik as a visual medium is widely known as a resist technique, because it uses wax as a means of resist to the dyes. This is how it appears. It will look at it from the aspect of tangible batik. But for me, batik is also an absorbing technique. I feel that the wax, color, and the culture is absorbed in the cloth. In my opinion, batik is a representation of the absorbing and recording of the spirit of culture that is not visible or the intangible aspect. Batik has become my chosen visual media because batik is a part of the art and culture of Indonesia that has existed for centuries. The incredible cultural treasures of Indonesian batik was recognized by UNESCO in 2009 as an intangible and oral cultural heritage of humanity. As a part of the continuing generation of batik, I feel as if I am new growth in a tree that has existed for a very long time before me and grows within culture. My life from before or since I was a child exists within me and is part of who I am now. This is the basic of the creative process, growth in the rootedness. In the batik, I have learned from the beginning by watching and a lot and helping to make batik in my community. In my village, the place where I was born and raised. At that time, many people still wore batik for their everyday clothes. When I was playing, there were still many people who made traditional batik and many young people who made batik for tourists. I studied through an oral tradition from my teachers and ancestors, as well as reading about batik. Also by reading the visual text of ancient temples and the images of tradition batiks. This is an image of Candi Sukuh on Mount Lawu. This relief is the symbol for our culture host. The relief of blacksmith shows the creative process and become a basis for creating my art. For me, the creative process in batik is a form of creativity that grows in a very, very natural way. What is meant by natural growth is based on the spirit of the soul that is in tune and moves towards that which has harmony or hayu. As well, it is based on an adaptation in the development of using technology in the context of harmony with the universality of nature. I feel this as a stimulant or motivator for rasa, or an intuitive sensitivity felt in aesthetic and beauty, and as an attitude or path that grows in a natural way. This is the character of life that is not visible, but become a reality in the process of creating art, like the tree of life. Now, I will share a video which shows how nature becomes a teacher in my work. Air merupakan hal yang sangat penting di dalam proses kreatif saya, karena air itu menggambarkan, kalau kita lihat di dalam air bisa menjadi semacam mirror, and di situ kita bisa melihat dasarnya dan kita bisa melihat langit yang di atasnya. Jadi tidak perlu kita menengok ke atas atau ke bawah, cukup lihat air sudah bisa memperlihatkan alam semesta. Dan air itu memiliki sifat yang bisa dia merasakan segala elemen alam. Bisa dia meresap udara, bisa dia meresap panas, bisa meresap dingin, bisa meresap semua benda di dalamnya, bisa melihatkan yang di luarnya. Jadi itu adalah sesuatu lambang daripada proses kreatif untuk saya, karena di dalam karya seni saya adalah mengekspresikan sesuatu yang ada di dalam kesemestaan. Jadi bukan mengekspresikan di dalam diri saya, tetapi diri saya merupakan mewakili dari kesemestaan. Jadi kesemestaan bisa menjadi ada di dalam karya saya karena saya harus melakukan dengan olah rasa, di mana ada praktek-praktek di dalam melakukan untuk merasakan elemen alam agar bisa menjadi satu dan menjadi dirinya, menjadi kesemestaan. Okay, there is a part of Japanese expression, ngilmu iku kelakone kanthi laku, that forms the character of life in Japanese culture. It means a knowledge that is attained through practice which can be felt in our life. What is the meaning of rasa? In my opinion, rasa and the mind cannot be separated. My analog is that where there is light, there is darkness. And the opposite is true. Where there is a darkness, there is light. Rasa, as it is known in Indonesia, contains three aspects. There is an external rasa that is connected to the five senses, like the taste of sweetness, bitterness, saltiness, cold, hot, and so on. The inner rasa are of feelings such as happiness, sadness, fear, humor, anxiety, and anxiety, and many others. Then there is rasa buddhi, which are the more noble feelings or a sense of altruism, like compassion, gratitude, avoidance of greed, and the highest form of this rasa is peace. Peace means in this case the ability to come to terms with whatever we face. Okay, from amongst the many visual images found in Indonesia batik, there is one batik image that especially inspires me in my creative process of art making. That is the batik semen. The word semi means to grow in rootedness. It shows me the importance of the creative process that occurred in the cosmocentric era. This shows ecologically the way of living in the everyday realm. What happens when the intimate life connection with the universality of nature shows itself as the spirit of creative stimulation from that period. This seems very interesting as a source of incentive in my creative process in this technological era. Batik semen also shows me about the creative process as a basis of Tribawana or the three world. The small world or the microcosmos, the big world or the macrocosmos, and the world of light or the source of creativity. There is batik semen with white and black backgrounds. Overall, batik semen has basic element called pakem that must be in the semen batik, but then there are many variations. These basic ornaments of flora and fauna and the element are used in almost all of the semen motif. The depict the big world or macrocosmos or what is called the universe that gives us life. As in cement, there is a house motif. And this is a representation of humans who are cultured or the small world, the microcosmos, or a sense of being alive. The throne of the king represent the king as a manifestation of the god, and the Garuda bird as the vehicle of the god Vishnu. This represents the word of life, or the source of creativity, or that which creates life. All of the ornament of the three words philosophically represent a unity that cannot be separated in their meaning, values, and significance that explain about life itself. So, these are some of the important aspects that guide me in my work as a way of living to find harmony in my spirit, a balance and tranquility in creating my art. Creative process is also a path of developing myself through the intangible visual aspect of my work. There is a wise saying of the Japanese, Mahayu Hayuning Bawono. For me, this shows the way of living in the spirit of harmony with its unity with the universality of nature. Such guidance from the cultural heritage of my ancestors in the reality of everyday life increases the essential value of my creativity, and this becomes a spirit in my creative activities. It becomes a path in life that is not spirited from my art. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Pak Ismoyo. You still have 3 minutes actually if you want to add something.
In my creative processes, that is to need to practice to be one, because with the universe, because with when become integral, that is like trees, that automatically grows, and that is so important in my creative process, and grows. Like trees. When a trees, mango trees, they can grow the mango, and that is already organized the universe, what the meaning and significance in life. And I need to, like I'm introduced before about the water, because water is genesis of life. Like example, all the spiritual life or ritual life before, and the religion and anything just use a water when there is some to the source of creativity, to the genuine of the life. I need to absorbing that creative process, and until now and still study, because life is very far
Dynamic.
and ending and no limited, and only we are limited, and but the life is so, and we just grow in that space, and I think that is good for me to absorbing with the ancient traditional creativity.
Thank you, Pak Ismoyo, for your insights. If I may summarize, there are some very important and interesting takeaways from what you just shared with us. Some of them are that creative process is both that is strongly rooted in cultural heritage. It's just like you mentioned tree before. And the second one is the use of technology in a harmonious and sustainable way, and nature as a teacher, and also ngilmu nglakoni nganti nglaku. And what I like is also about how art engages rasa, which is consists of external senses, internal feeling, and moral ethics. So through your experiences, you have shown us the fundamental and intangible values of Indonesian batik tradition. You have a very holistic approach to creative process that is deeply rooted in local and past traditional values. And it enables you to see how the past and the present are closely connected more than we usually realize, even as technology and the visual changes over time. So thank you once again for your presentation. I would like to continue to our second speaker for today. We have Ozak, who will be talking about traditional creative process implemented in a digital-based art creation. So I will read Ozak's bio. Ozak is an emerging visual artist who has had artists in residence at Babaran Segara Gunung Culture House and Padepokan Seni Bagong Kusudiarja in 2020, and takes a digital-based approach that is experimental with traditional creative process in his creations. Ozak's work often reflects social phenomena in everyday life that are rooted in the cultural values contained in batik. In this dialogue on creative cultural heritage, Ozak will talk about his experimentation with this traditional creative process in his digital-based work. For Ozak, this is an effort to bring tradition and culture of the past to the present in a form which is relevant to the times. So it will be very interesting to hear from a younger generation artist on how he views and experimented with tradition, creativity, and technology. So please welcome Ozak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Michael, for giving me time, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to attend in this webinar. This is what I want to say, and first of all, I will introduce myself. I was born in a world of tradition and culture, art and technology that stands at the order of the contemporary era. That means I live where it has all changed and have no experience other than that alteration, especially experience of cultural events in the past. In this dialogue, it is impossible for me to speak about what I do not know and what I do not do. So, in the context of this dialogue of intangible cultural heritage, I am interested in how the intangible cultural heritage is passed down directly from the giver to the recipient in a certain cultural event. But as a young artist living in a contemporary and digital era, also, where can I learn about cultural heritage? I learned a lot during my 1 month residency at the Babaran Segara Gunung Culture House in 2017, which at that time was in the context of reading the visual text of the batik cement. We took 1 week to do the Ngilmu stage of gaining knowledge. In this, we learned the concept of the three universes that is called Tribawana, which is related to rasa, a kind of intuitive sensitivity. Then we had 1 week of laku, or learning how to do it. Here, we had a deepening appreciation of ourselves and our connection to nature. Then in the last 2 weeks, we carried out kelakon, or putting it all together. There was dialogue between artists with different cultural backgrounds to create collaborative works. This cultural event made me aware of our oneness. Everything combines with the energy of nature to create artwork together. Spirit, soul, mind, and rasa are not separate. One of the most interesting things in that experience was when I reflected on my childhood when I said that I didn't like wearing Japanese traditional clothes. But today, I realize that dislike is not a barrier for me to learn more about the tradition and cultures of the past. Then it raises a curiosity in my mind about how the tradition and culture are to take form in the present. At the Padepokan Seni Bagong Sudiarjo, I had an artist in residency where I experienced art and cultural events for 10 months. The artists involved in the residency were given a legacy of discipline, responsibility, trust, and what they could contribute as artists to society. The interesting thing for me in this legacy was learning how, as an artist, I'm able to articulate my work to all elements of society. So, the artist has a responsibility for the work created to enter the life of the society. The two places look different, but for me, it is a deepening of what culture is. And in fact, both of them are related to each other, which is about how to pass on an intangible culture from the past to the present through their respective strategies and methods. I am a young artist who has received these heritages. So, what is it for? What is important for me, who still does not know much about this cultural heritage? What things need to be considered for carrying the ancient heritage forward in these times? I'm not a batik or puppet artist, but I am a visual artist who respects the intellectual richness of art, tradition, and culture of Nusantara in the past, and I want to be a part of bringing it into the present with technology. And I want to remind you that I am not promoting technology, but I tend to share my opinions about how technology is not seen as going against an ancient tradition. In my artistic experience, technology is no longer just a tool, but as a medium that has its own complex systems and operation. I am just one of the many artists who are involved in experimenting in creating works with technology. Of course, I am not talking about the high-tech, destructive kind, and so on. But what I mean is technology we often use in everyday life. And for me, experimenting is an interesting approach to discovering something new and also learning from the completely unknown in exploring intangible cultural heritage. In my artistic practice, experimentation opens up various possibilities that are linked to the exploration of a value of tradition and the culture of the past. Experimenting with the traditional creative process with complex computing and digitizing systems is a special experience for me. I feel that is an impetus within me to unite my mind in the West with my body standing on the land of Java. And all of that, for me, is very challenging and a fun thing at the same time. So, with that, I want to see how digital technology is able to contribute to the creative process that contains the values of the intangible meaning of a past tradition and culture. And I realize that the work that I have created has its own purpose. and I designed it to achieve that purpose. This work contains the meaning of Tribhawana, a cultural heritage regarding the relationship between humans and nature. Using photography, I wanted to see and capture how the human mind relates to the substance of nature, how both are related to the rasa that encourages their motion along with the motion of nature. Through this work, I learned how natural elements also move the human body and how humans respond to the motion of nature itself. I still want to study the closeness of humans to nature, and I try to get closer to cultural events that often occur in everyday life. I wonder, are family and objects around the house also related to rasa and nature? In this work, nature has interpretation as an object around the house and personal space. It turns out that they are related to one another in traumatic and cathartic experiences, and it is connected with what is written in the ancient Javanese manuscript about rasa, among others, Bayanaka, worried, Vibatsa, horrified, Soka, sad, Krodha, angry, Usaha, firm, Playa, afraid, and also Jugupsa, disgusted. In batik, I feel I can see which culture has changed. The visual taste of batik cement contains the concept of the three universes. Those are the microcosmos or the self, the macrocosmos, which is our connection to nature, and the universe or the realm of our existence, including plants, animals, and our connection in community. And the third is our connection to nature. Oh, sorry. And the third is our connection to the source of creativity. However, in the concept of the three universes and our connection to nature, creators actually complement the ecological balance of human life on Earth. But I see an imbalance between our microcosmos and our connection to the macrocosmos. In today's context, for example, people feel fear, disgust, and even phobia when they see caterpillars, larvae, and other insects, which in fact protect the earth to this day. In today's cultural event, man uses his intelligence to kill the tiny giant, kill caterpillars, scorpions, and larvae because they are considered pests to the plant ecosystem and are often perceived as parasites for humans themselves. But in this work, the insects are larger than humans as a repression of their big role in ecological systems balance. And also, at the same time asking, where is the human feeling or rasa for the tiny insects that play a big role? Okay. With my limited exploration and journey, what is my purpose to become an artist and create art? For now, it is to understand and try to realize the vision in living as a cultured human. I am trying to keep promises to the ancestors who have passed on their traditions and culture to the next generations. This is so what I do can support the continuity of today's culture from the past and reflect on what happens in the future. And I hope that someday I can pass on the tradition and culture that I learned to my descendants and also to all society. Perhaps that's all I can talk about, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ozat. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed your video in a dizzying way. I do get it. I mean, when I watch your artwork, your video artwork, I feel with the sound effect, I feel the sense of creepiness, like insects are crawling, feeling disgusted, feeling dizzy, hatred towards insect, but it makes me reflect on why. Why do I hate these little creatures? And these little creatures actually are good for me. Without them, we cannot survive. So I really enjoyed the video. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Your
Thank you for
artwork reminds me, your artwork reminds us that most of the time we are too focused on technology in the pursuit of creating something new, something that is valuable in terms of finance. But we often forget that and don't realize that we are being disconnected from our humanity, our past, and our natural environment. So this is something that I really love and also would like to share to my students, to my design students, about the creative process. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we have come to our third speaker for today. We have Mr. Ananta Oedan, who will share the concept of the tricycle as an artistic point of view in creative art. Now, I believe Mr. Ananta Oedan will share a very creative point of view that will inspire us in the future. Allow me to read his short bio. Ananta Hari Nursasetyo is an artist also called Ananta Oedan. He is an activist of traditional arts, culture, and a lecturer at the University of Mercu Buana, Jakarta. His main goal is to invite his university students to take care of the earth by creating artworks that are upcycled. He worked at the Jakarta Puppet Museum for 2 years as an expert on display and cataloging the museum's 5,500-piece shadow puppet collection. Wow. He has also collected entire shadow puppet sets and also collects tricycles and bicycles, a really strange combination from wayang to tricycles and bicycles. This inspired his work to make contemporary shadow puppet figures with bicycles and technology and their connection to the environment. For him, this is a kind of environmental art as a unity with nature is most important. So please, without any further ado, please welcome Mr. Ananta Oedan.
Makasih untuk Ibu Nia, terima kasih ya. Terus Mas Tony Sugiarta, terima kasih banyak. Buat Pak Michael, senang sekali ketemu lagi. Mbak Grace dan Mbak Foni. Oke, mungkin kita langsung aja ya biar nanti dapat pertanyaannya lumayan agak panjang. Oke. dimulai dari, saya memulai dengan kesibukan yang amat sangat di Jakarta. Kebetulan saya tinggal di Jakarta dan besar di Jakarta. Saya berangkat jam 4:15 subuh, pulang jam 10 malam. Itu yang saya lakukan tiap hari. Tiap hari saya hanya mendengar kendaraan yang super bising, karena lingkungan rumah saya adalah di pinggir jalan. Terus ketika saya bangun, saya sudah mendengar banyak sekali tetangga yang mengobrol sana sini tanpa istirahat bahkan ya. Kemudian ketika saya berangkat kerja, saya selalu melintasi sampah-sampah logam karena saya tinggal saya berada di Tanjung Priok di Jakarta Utara, Mas Michael. Ya, sampah logam, sampah plastik, sampah kayu. Nah, sehingga membuat perasaan saya ketika itu menjadi seorang seniman itu tergerak untuk merespon sebuah karya seni. Jadi karya seni yang saya buat itu nantinya akan banyak sekali berkaitan dengan apa namanya upcycle ya. Selain itu saya masih beraktivitas di Museum Wayang, menjadi seorang ahli tata pamer sampai sekarang ya. Terus masih mengumpulkan barang-barang bekas yang berkaitan dengan bekas-bekas industri. Karena itu adalah modal saya ketika nanti saya bereksplorasi karya seni. Gitu ya. Berikutnya. Nah, sebelumnya saya masuk ke abstrak. Jadi di sini saya mau menerangkan bahwa ada nilai seni dan perspektif dalam pembuatan sepeda. Jadi yang nantinya tidak hanya sepeda pada umumnya yang saya akan create gitu ya, tapi lebih kepada proses kreatifnya. Jadi perspektif bagaimana sih sepeda itu nanti akan dibuat. Gitu. Kemudian ada penggunaan materi yang menurut saya menjadi media baru gitu ya, media baru yang membentuk karya sepeda. Sebetulnya tidak hanya sepeda, tapi background-nya sepeda. Karena saya tidak menghadirkan sebuah sepeda, tapi wacana sepeda yang saya torehkan ke dalam karya saya. Gitu. Karya saya dan teman-teman saya. Gitu. Terus kemudian saya juga fokus kepada bagaimana seorang pekerja seni itu memperlakukan benda-benda bekas pakai atau upcycle, Pak Michael, sebagai bentuk daur ulang menjadi sebuah karya seni yang berbeda. Jadi yang notabene itu sebetulnya nggak ada lagi urusan konsep-konsep artistik gitu ya. Oke, yang berikutnya, jika ada orang bertanya nih, apa reaksi Anda sih ketika ada orang tanya, apa kamu pernah punya sepeda? Wah, ini sebuah jawaban yang buat saya sangat bervariasi ya, dari tiap orang ke orang lain jawabannya sangat bervariasi. Jelas karena buat saya sepeda menggambarkan proyeksi kepada pemiliknya ya. Bagaimana dengan sepeda kita bisa banyak bercerita ya. Jadi kita juga patut berterima kasih kepada pembuat sepedanya nih. Seperti dulu seorang pencipta pertama yaitu Bapak Carl Drees yang telah menemukan sepeda yang bannya besar seperti itu ya, velocipede gitu ya. Itu cikal bakal sepeda pertama yang ada di dunia. Nah, sehingga sepeda menjamur ke berbagai negara. Ya, jika orang tanya apa reaksinya, oh saya senang banget punya sepeda gitu ya. Oke, berikutnya. Selain sepeda menjadi moda transportasi, saya belum berbicara ke situ dulu. Tapi saya melihat kepada diri saya. Jadi kenapa saya ambil sepeda sebagai bentuk atau konsepnya? Mengingat pada masa itu poin yang sangat penting dan kuat yang saya miliki hingga sekarang. Gitu ya. Di masa kecil, permainan itu umum sekali dipakai oleh anak umur 2 sampai 6 tahun sepeda roda 3 ya. Berdasarkan riset saya dan pengalaman pribadi saya itu sampai umur 6 tahun. Itu untuk roda 3. Dalam ingatan saya ya, sepeda itu menjadi sebuah ajang interaksi antar personal, antar grup, antar kelompok gitu ya, kepada teman-teman masa kecil. Namun berbeda dengan saya tidak memiliki sepeda karena memang mohon maaf keuangan yang ada di keluarga saya tidak memungkinkan untuk saya membeli sepeda roda 3 gitu ya. Yang pada akhirnya sosok sepeda membuat saya muak. Sosok sepeda membuat saya marah. Sosok sepeda membuat saya menyedihkan, dan itu saya alami tiap saya melihat lalu lalang anak kecil bermain sepeda, gitu ya, kesana kemari, gitu ya. Jadi dari sepeda saya mendapatkan sebuah sensasi pengalaman yang sangat mendalam, ya, yang telah menjadi bayangan masa lalu hingga sekarang itu ikut terus melekat pada diri saya. Wah, itu pengalaman saya sebagai anak kecil, ya. Kemudian saya masuk kepada isu dan interestnya. Nah, di sini saya bagi menjadi 4. Memori tentang sepeda roda 3 pada masa kecil, ya, jelas itu menjadi konsep utamanya. Terus kemudian ada konteks ergonomis dan estetis, tapi estetis tidak menjadi yang utama. Kemudian masalah sosial, karena masalah sosial ini penting. Di situ terjadi yaitu tentang gap sosial atau kelas, ya. Bagaimana kalau orang yang punya sepeda itu sepedanya akan sangat menarik dan warnanya baik, dan yang tidak punya pasti home industry yang bentuknya misalnya sepeda itu terbuat dari besi. Nah, sementara yang punya uang itu terbuat dari aluminium alloy gitu ya. Terus kemudian saya masuk ke perkembangan anak dan barang-barang bekas pakai, ya, itu barang-barang bekas gitu ya. Nah, dimulai dari childhood memory recycle, ya. Jadi proses pembuatan karya seni ini berdasarkan ingatan pada masa itu, gitu. Jadi saya ambil ingatan-ingatan saya ambil itu menjadi sebuah proses yang atau obsesi yang harus saya timbulkan, obsesi yang menjadi sangat penting untuk membentuk sepeda-sepeda dengan media baru, ya. Selain dari segi fungsi, baik sepeda roda 3 maupun roda 2, yang pada akhirnya deformasi mengalami besar-besaran karena ergonomis dan estetika itu saling berkaitan, ya. Jadi tampilannya sudah sangat berbeda. Dari sisi ergonomis saya membuat bagian-bagian tertentu itu saya ubah habis-habisan, gitu ya. Dan konsep ini saya ambil menjadi semacam penyesuaian kebutuhan bentuk, gitu ya. Bisa konsep dari kayu sisa, dari kemudian dari karet yang sudah usang, untuk menopang material-material yang ada. Nah, fungsi sebagai penggeraknya itu juga kadang-kadang masih bisa berputar, namun tidak, gitu ya, karena konsep artistiknya masih tetap saya pakai, gitu ya. Pedal yang digunakan bahkan kadang saya hilangkan, gitu ya. Gitu. Karena konsep ini digunakan untuk memenuhi masalah acuan karakter utama, yaitu kreasi baru yang notabene saya anggap gila. Sosial aspek, wah ini sosial aspek. Kalau kita bicara sosial aspek, ya, kondisi terjadi karena berhubungan manusia itu sendiri berkaitan dengan teknologi, ya. Bagaimana sepeda menjadi sangat penting, ya, di mata masyarakat sebagai hobi juga sebagai unsur main-main biasa saja karena kebutuhan untuk memiliki sepeda. Jadi kita jika ingin zaman dahulu kalau kita ingin punya motor, kita harus belajar bersepeda roda 3 dulu, kemudian roda 2 gitu ya. Kemudian sepeda bagi masyarakat itu sudah menjadi gaya hidup baru yang sampai sekarang itu sangat penting ya, harus dimiliki. Kita bisa lihat di kota-kota besar seperti Jakarta, Surabaya, Yogyakarta, bahkan internasional, dan Indonesia itu memiliki rating paling tertinggi nomor 1 pembelian sepeda besar-besaran ketika di zaman pandemi. Yang pada akhirnya ini saling terhubung, yaitu responsif kondisi yang ada dengan kebutuhan individu. Jadi ada apa namanya? Ada sosial efek, kemudian individual. Ya. Di sini saya pakai gambarnya sepeda Pak Jokowi nih. Kebetulan sepeda ini punya saya yang dipinjam oleh Bapak Presiden, Pramono Anung dan sebagainya. Waktu itu sepeda saya dipinjam sekitar 80 sepeda. Ya, yang di bawahnya ini kondisi sosial bersepeda yang ada di Jakarta. Kita masuk ke child development. Bagaimana sepeda mempengaruhi perkembangan anak, mental dan fisik? Jelas. Buat saya ini teori. Jadi ketika saya mengingat pada masa lalu, yaitu situasi di mana anak memilih rangsangan yang kuat terhadap pemilikan sepeda roda 3, itu menurut Jack Rousseau dan dalam Children and the Art Method for Elementary School, itu dia filsuf abad 18, ya, yang bahwa pengaruh masa kecil itu diperkuat oleh gagasan-gagasan. Ya, jadi ketika masa kecil itu gagasan berkesenian itu sudah ada. Seperti misalnya seorang anak kecil berani mengayuh sepeda, terus kemudian berani mengecat sepedanya karena itu berkaitan dengan mental. Jadi mentalnya tuh seperti itu. Sangat erat kaitannya. Kemudian fisikal. Kalau tentang fisikal itu berkaitan dengan bagaimana anak pada masa itu sangat kuat. Jadi kerjanya cuma main-main saja, sehingga fisik itu bisa dibilang kalau menurut saya anak jarang sakit karena sudah berkaitan dengan apa namanya, dengan kehidupan pada masa itu yang selalu semuanya bermain bersama-sama gitu ya. Terus kemudian menjadi lingkaran kegembiraan bagi anak-anak kecil. Nah, ini diagram konsep tricycle saya, gitu ya. Ada isu, terus kemudian saya memakai konsep. Nah, menurut saya ketika seorang artis atau seorang seniman yang berkaitan, karena teman-teman kreatif art, yaitu eksperimental kreatif, itu saya ajak untuk memikirkan bagaimana kita sebelum membuat karyanya itu, kita bicara dulu, Anda senang apa sih? Gitu. Anda senang apa sih? Di dalam kehidupan Anda itu senang apa? Kemudian baru masuk kepada isunya. Jadi apa yang ada di depan? Setelah itu kita bisa masuk proses konsep yang ada di pola pikir kita. Dengan cara menggabungkan yaitu risetnya, kemudian ada proses bereksplorasi, pengumpulan bahan, kemudian kita membuat objeknya. Nah, ini yang tadi saya bilang, jadi metode kreasinya itu, metode penciptaannya itu adalah bagaimana proses itu diterapkan menjadi tujuan utamanya, yaitu seperti misalnya ada saturasi. Saturasi mengumpulkan semua informasi. Jadi semua informasi dikumpulkan, gitu ya, Ya. Kemudian ada periode inkubasi. Ya. Kemudian ada periode-periode yang berimajinasi atau fantasi. Jadi fantasi itu sangat penting, ya, sangat penting. Karena fantasi itu adalah modal, juga termasuk modal yang mengasah kemampuan kemampuan para teman-teman mahasiswa atau seniman untuk membuat entitas baru atau ciptaan baru yang memiliki karakter yang berbeda daripada yang lainnya gitu. Jadi ketika itu sudah terpenuhi baru masuk ke prapenciptaan. Jadi prapenciptaan itu salah satunya adalah kita mengambil media-medianya seperti logam dan sebagainya, bagaimana cara membengkokkannya. Nah, metode-metode ini sangat penting karena saya juga mengajarkan kepada teman-teman mahasiswa atau teman-teman pekerja saya agar tahu ilmu bahan, karena ilmu bahan itu sangat penting untuk digali, gitu ya. Kalau ini proses proses pembuatan sepeda roda 3, ya, gitu. Sepeda roda 3. Jadi saya buat skate dan sebagainya, rodanya banyak dan sebagainya. Gitu. Nah, kemudian masuk kepada ekspresi dan imajinasi itu pada akhirnya berkaitan dengan latar belakang semua yang ditampilkan oleh memori masa lalu teman-teman mahasiswa, ya. Jadi nanti akan kita bisa lihat karya-karyanya seperti apa. Jadi macam-macam. Jadi tidak hanya sepeda, karena sepeda itu hanya sebagai bahan atau medianya saja, gitu ya. Buat saya dari semua yang dituturkan seperti ada kemampuan motorik, kemudian menstimulasi otak, bagaimana teman-teman mentransferkan keinginan mereka untuk membuat karyanya, itu bisa diterapkan kepada karya yang nantinya akan dibuat, ya. Seperti misalnya kita juga mengacu kepada gerak keseimbangan ke kiri dan ke kanan, itu juga bisa dijadikan sebagai konsep pembuatan karya seni, ya. Kemudian saya mau bicara sedikit tentang membangun imajinasi dan fantasi, ya. Buat saya membangun imajinasi dalam fantasi itu juga modal yang sangat penting, ya. Karena banyak sekali mahasiswa tidak paham, atau saya pun kadang-kadang nggak paham apa yang harus saya buat. Tapi ketika saya ambilkan semua materi yang sudah ada, kemudian saya jabarkan kepada konsep-konsep sketsa-sketsa saya, itu bisa menjadi sangat berbeda. Tapi buat saya sah-sah aja, nah, gitu ya. Buat saya sah saja. Ketika jadinya kok menjadi karya yang instalasi art, itu tidak apa-apa. Gitu ya. Karena itu basicnya dengan riset berbasis seni tadi, gitu ya. Nah, saya selalu menggunakan risetnya itu ya dengan cara diskusi dengan teman-teman, men-share, bahkan saya membuat diskusi khusus bersama teman-teman yang ada di berbagai universitas, gitu ya. Ini gambar saya diskusi berada di universitas, dan ini saya juga membuat konsep ini di Thailand, gitu ya. Thailand, dan kemarin terakhir di ISI Yogyakarta. Kemudian saya ingin menjelaskan mengapa metode penelitian berbasis seni itu sangat penting, ya. Dalam hal ini saya menggunakan art-based research digunakan sebagai metodenya. Jadi bagaimana cara pandang mengamati proses yang dicirikan oleh objek. Jadi objek yang memiliki ciri khusus itu pasti dasarnya adalah dengan penelitian. Contohnya misalnya pada karya-karya yang akhirnya nantinya ketika setelah diamati, dipelajari, kemudian melahirkan pemahaman baru tentang bagaimana melihat karya sepeda yang tidak lagi fokus kepada nilai guna, tapi lebih kepada nilai artistiknya, gitu ya. Karena saya kan mengambil keberadaan benda yang kita proses itu dengan konteks sepeda dengan pola pikir kreatif yang berkaitan dengan lingkungan, gitu ya. Misalnya environmental art, kayak gitu. Jadi ada kesinambungan di situ antara alam yang ada di kehidupan saya, teman-teman, dan hasil karya seninya. Nah, gitu ya. Nah, ini material yang digunakan. Ini semua material yang digunakan ini dapat dari sekeliling saya, gitu ya. Gitu. Bahan-bahan yang dirangkai itu tidak hanya kawat atau rubber atau plastik, tapi apa saja yang saya dapatkan di jalan tuh saya ambil, gitu. Ya, ini. Jadi ini prosesnya. Nah, ini hasil sepeda salah satu sepeda yang kami buat, ya, ya. Ini sudah menggunakan finishing cat besi. Gitu. Nah, ini kebetulan hasil ini pikiran tentang hasil kreasinya, jadi tetap menggunakan sisi teknologi, aspek artistik, kemudian harmoni, kemudian bagaimana sepeda roda 3 ini bisa bekerja, gitu ya. Nah, ini mungkin ini sudah banyak dijelaskan, yaitu teknologi menjadi aspek yang sangat penting, gitu ya. Teknologi menjadi aspek penting dalam pergerakannya, pergerakan sepeda tersebut maksudnya. Namun tanpa sentuhan artistik, produk sepeda yang saya buat ini akan menjadi kusam dan mandul menurut saya, gitu ya. Jadi sisi seni yang diekspresikan itu bisa diperkuat dengan batasan wacana struktural yang tadi saya jabarkan, dari mulai membuat sketsa, kemudian dan pemilihan bahan dan sebagainya, gitu ya. Oke, saya pikir itu, dan ini saya dipercepat saja. Ini contoh-contoh sepeda-sepeda yang dihasilkan dari eksperimental kreatif. Ya. Jadi ini semua barang bekas. Jadi sudah tidak mungkin dipakai lagi, tapi hanya sebagai benda pajang. Ini juga dari barang bekas, kita membuat sisa-sisa barang-barang yang kita kumpulkan menjadi karya-karya monumental, gitu ya. Ada robot, ada Garuda, ada laba-laba, gitu. Nah, ini juga konsepnya masih sepeda, tapi sudah tidak lagi bisa digunakan, ya. Bentuknya sudah patung, bisa dilihat kita menggunakan karakter-karakter kuat, gitu. Semuanya berkaitan dengan roda, gear bekas dan sebagainya. Ya, ini tampilan bagaimana seni gerak juga kita tampilkan. Ya, ini saya coba untuk proses ke batik wacana sepeda roda 3. Nah, ini juga kebanyakan sketsa-sketsa saya masih berkaitan dengan sepeda dan wayang karena saya suka dengan wayang. Ini sebuah penggambaran konsep masa kecil saya yang suka dengan mainan. Ya, bisa dilihat ada kuda-kudaan, ada smart, tapi bentuknya kuda goyang. Gitu. Ini ketika saya melukis painting ada yang di universitas, ada yang di rumah, ada yang di masyarakat, dimanapun saya suka saya akan lakukan. Ini pameran-pameran saya yang dibuka oleh Yeni Wahid dan sebagainya, tunggal dan contoh-contohnya. Ini performance art, saya masih melakukan performance art, Mas Michael, ya. Terus kemudian ini koleksi saya, kebetulan saya punya sepeda 1208 jumlahnya, ya. Jadi ini sebagai konsep yang saya pakai. Ini sebagai inspirasi, ini sebagian sepeda saya yang selain sepeda roda 2, saya punya sepeda roda 3 yang jumlahnya hampir 400-an lebih. Jadi ini tidak termasuk yang 1208 tadi. Gitu. Nah, ini koleksi-koleksi wayang. Ini semua pameran-pameran saya yang berkaitan dengan sepeda, atau kemudian lukisan dan sebagainya. Ini saya menulis masih tetap dengan menulis dan ditulis oleh media masih berkaitan dengan mainan, gitu ya. Media-media dalam dan luar negeri, gitu ya. Dalam dan negeri. Ya, ini. Ya, begitu. Terima kasih Pak Michael.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Pak Ananta.
Yeah.
Right on time. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. You have shown us the depth, the length, breadth, and your multi-perspective complexity of your creative process. Sadly to say, in this fast-paced modern age, I believe not many people can relate and understand to the complexity of your creative process, or what the complexity of the creative process in the artist's mind. And people no longer willing to understand this complexity. Now we can see from you, we are reminded that the creative process requires us to reconnect with our own past and the culture of the world around us, to see things that we usually take for granted, such as garbage, and the importance of critical design analysis and research, and the use of technology in the broader sense to create engaging and monumental artworks. I do agree with you, strongly agree with you, that artistic-based research is something that I believe design higher education should teach. It should be taught in design higher education, because our education system dichotomize art and design. There is a separation between art and design school. And I believe this dichotomy disconnected us or design students from the natural creative process that you have just explained and described, that is supposed to be holistic and experiential, playful, and natural. So this is something that the takeaways from your presentation, if I may say so. Thank you so much for your presentation. So once again, I would like to invite all the speakers to give one final closing statements. And let's start from Pak Ismoyo.
I think it's with the recognition of Indonesian batik by UNESCO as an intangible and oral cultural heritage of humanity. I think just please, why don't you try it? Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ismoyo. And Mr. Ozak, can you give your final closing statement, please?
Okay, okay. I would like to say to all of you, especially for youngest people here, if we couldn't, if we don't try to get closer to something that we don't like, how we can judge them abstract or really not interesting or something like that. In my way, in my experience, I use my curiosity to learn why I don't like, why I don't try. I need to try it, and it is challenging and fun. I think
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ozak. Yes, I totally agree with you. Curiosity is something that is really important for us in education, to know things that we don't even agree or we don't know things. Okay, so finally, let's hear the closing statement from Mr. Ananta, Pak Ananta Oedan.
Ya, oke. Terima kasih. Buat kita mengekspresikan kreatif dengan perluasan yang sangat besar, luas jangkauannya, dengan lingkungan terutama, bagaimana kita sebaiknya bisa berkreasi dengan lingkungan, gitu ya, mencintai lingkungan kita sendiri, sehingga kita bisa menambah wawasan dalam pengetahuan tentang proses kreatif itu sendiri untuk membuat karya seni. Jadi khususnya untuk memberikan pemahaman baru. Jadi kita jangan takut untuk terus mengerjakan apa yang kita inginkan dengan bingkai yang berbeda. Atau kita bisa dengan cara mengubah cara pandang orang, barang bekas menjadi sebuah karya seni yang menarik dan bisa direpresentasikan dalam bentuk apapun yang kita inginkan. Saya pikir upcycle atau barang bekas itu indah menurut saya.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Ananta Weda.
Yeah.
Thank you every participants. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you for the wonderful speakers today. I personally learned a lot from the speakers we have today. So it is very insightful and inspiring webinar. I hope to see you again in other opportunities. For now, I will give back the event to Mr. Tony as the Master of Ceremony. Thank you so much for everyone.
Once again, thank you so much, Michael, and as well as the three panelists today, Pak Ismoyo, Ozax, and Pak Ananta, as well as Grace, who has been helping us in the translation channel. And before we go our separate ways today, I would like to first invite back Ms. Sandra Nissen to give her closing remarks.
Thank you again, Tony. Wow, what an exciting seminar this has been. I would like to thank everybody for an extremely stimulating session. Not just our three wonderful artists, Mas Ismoyo, Mas Ozak, and Pak Ananta, terima kasih banyak, but also the questions, which I thought were very perceptive and have led to a very valuable discussion. I personally enjoyed many things, like being back in BSG, the Babaran Segara Gunung, where I've spent many enjoyable hours with Ibu Nia and Mas Ismoyo, and I know it's been a very valuable crucible in Indonesia for the artistic process. And I think it was wonderful to have Mas Ozak present to show us how that time that he's spent learning in BSG has influenced his own creative process. I think it hasn't been said that there are seminars happening at BSG for artists and students who would like to learn from Mas Ismoyo, who's so steeped in authentic self-awareness of his creative process. So remember that, and do go to try to participate in some of their events. On a personal note, again, I have to say I loved the presentation about the bicycle. I'm a Canadian, I'm half Dutch, and probably I live in Holland because of the bicycle. I've never owned a car, sorry, and I'm totally in love with a bicycle. The most efficient mode of transport in the world, sorry. And maybe it's the excitement about the bicycle makes me lose my voice. I think that Ananta has to come to Belanda. And I think he would fit right in because there's a lot of creative work happening with the bicycle, but none of it associated with the wayang and with batik. So come and introduce us to new facets of the bicycle. The Dutch would be amazed. I love the discussion that Ibu Yana sparked about creativity and its universality. I personally believe that the creative process is in absolutely everything we do, from how we organize our families, how we organize our social structures, how we organize our dinner parties, how we decorate our homes, and so on. And we have to be very thankful to the three artists with us today who are so self-aware and have gone so deeply into recognizing their own process. I know from my discussions with Mas Ismoyo, and I heard it again today, the deep connection with nature, how I've often thought that all environmentalists should come and listen to Mrs. Moyo talk about the importance of nature in his work. And particularly when we're having a crisis of the physical environment in the world today, I think that batik can do so much to teach us to appreciate our local environment. And then listening to Mas Ozak and Pa Ananta, realizing that the physical environment, which at one time was predominantly alam, the kind that Mrs. Moyo focuses on, now, of course, it involves the computer, it involves sampah, garbage that is everywhere. And that can be incorporated into the whole process of developing culture through creativity. I loved learning how all of our artists are bringing themselves into the modern world by keeping rooted in their own past, in their own heritage. And this is the authentic voice that I heard emerging in all of the discussions. So it was very rich, very powerful. And I would like everybody present to please pull out your pen and write down in your notebook the 15th of April, Working in Creativity with the Earth. That's the next one in the seminar series. Please be present. It's bound to be as exciting and powerful as this one. Thank you to you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Before we close off this session, as Sandra has mentioned, if I can have Fonny or Robin to help me pull up the slides. These are our upcoming webinar in the series. So it's the second talk in the creativity process webinar series. It's creativity in working with the earth on the 15th of April, 2 p.m. GMT +7. We will be having Bregas from Studio Pakundan Pottery, Delita from Kutai Barat, East Kalimantan, and Rika as the moderator for the session. And Sandra also mentioned about learning from Pak Ismoyo. BSG is having their first virtual workshops. So for those of you who, with the travel restriction now, we have the opportunity to learn directly from Nya and Pak Ismoyo to learn more about this creative process, as well as creating batik with them, or any art form in general. So finally, this is the rest of the series of the cultural heritage of the Nusantara creative process. So after the 15th, we have another 2 more sessions, one in May and another one in June. So, and finally, not to take further time, I would like to invite everybody to just open up their cameras for a short photo session. I hope we can have everybody. I know that we have overrun. I apologize. Is Robin or Fonny who will be helping to take a screenshot?
Okay, is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Okay, taking 1, 2, and done.
Okay. Are we good?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yes. So that will be the end of our session today. Thank you so much for the great participation from everyone. And yeah, we apologize if there is anything unpleasant that you have experienced today. And until next time, take care and stay safe.